For the night is dark and full of terrors.
Night is dark and full of terrors. I see my voice isn't as interesting as Gemma's. Like it just doesn't have the same ring to it. The night is dark and full of terrors.
Goodness me, what was that?
That was really bad. Okay, everyone, forgive me. We're going to jump into the Lord of Light. We're actually going to talk about the Red God, R'hllor, and kind of everything that it encompasses. I went deep into Zoroastrianism. I didn't go as deep into what I felt animism was a little bit more interesting for me. But let's jump into it, Gemma. The Lord of Light. What is your feeling about this religion?
Oh, wow, goodness me. Where do we start with the Lord of Light, the Red God of Light and Shadow? It's a dualistic religion. So in the same way as Christianity, for example, we have a God who is good and light and wonderful, and then we have the devil. So there's this antithesis, this opposition. And in R'hllor, we have the Lord of Light, R'hllor himself, who obviously everybody's aware of, but his antithesis, his enemy, engaged in this internal war with, is the great other, the Lord of shadow and ice and dark and cold, he whose name must not be spoken, which is a little bit Harry Potter. But yeah, so we don't actually know who the great other is, but of course we can't but help connect that name to the others. Melisandre says that the others are the servants of the great other. So she's suggesting that the others worship the great other. And then, so that would put her and the followers of R'hllor in direct opposition with the others. So that is that literal ice and fire together. But Melisandre, it's a very stringent religion. Anybody who does not believe is an agent of the great other. If you believe in the faith of the seven, if you believe in Kahor, the black goat, if you believe in the old gods, if you have any religion that does not follow the Lord of Light, you are an agent for the great other, whether you know it or not. And that isn't, and not knowing it is no excuse. They will burn you as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light, just because you don't believe, which is just a bit, you know, I can't think of the word, but
it's really interesting, Gemma, because Zoroastrianism is probably the main influence for this religion, the worship of fire. You talked about dualism. It actually combines cosmic dualism and monotheism, which is really interesting. It's pretty extreme though, because it uses that messianism, the idea of a god and like a Satan, heaven and hell. It has a lot to do with free will, and it is influenced differently because there are priests and there are people who are devoted to temples and whatnot. This one's a little bit different than the old gods. They actually, like, you know how a church will have an altar, they put their Bible down, or you know, in other cultures they'll have like some sort of totem. They actually use fire as their altar. Like they get in front of a fire and they do chanting and whatnot, and fire is actually considered by them to be what's life sustaining. They have this fire within them, and the sun sustains light with life, and it's really crazy. Their prayers are actually usually done within the presence of fire, which is pretty crazy. And also, which is pretty weird, fire is considered the medium where they actually get their spiritual insight. So they believe, kind of like the old gods do, where trees and everything, they have souls, like they have their own consciousness, and they are matter. So therefore, they do feel like we do. They believe in fire in that same kind of way, and they believe that like the fire, but fire is above them, essentially, as not like we are all one. So that's it's a little bit more scary than the old gods, I think. And
I think they are both absolutely terrifying when you start going down that rabbit hole into blood-eating trees. That's pretty terrifying. But R'hllor, the Lord of Light, is more overtly scary. It's more obviously scary, and
more
like
extreme.
They do have priests. They have ceremonies. They have every evening they get together, as you said, and this is a very organized celebration of the day that they've just had and the ushering in of the night. So this is very much that there are connections to ancient Egypt with the perpetual battle between the god of the day and the sun and the god of the night and the dark, and how one would overcome the other in this perpetual battle of night and day and night and day, because there was no winner. They both kept beating each other and then defeating each other and then losing, and then the next one would rise again, and this was the cycle. But so, like you said earlier on with the old gods, it's not like we can pinpoint these to any one real life religion and say, bingo, that's the one. That's exactly what it is. George R. R. Martin, it's like a patchwork quilt of inspiration and mythology and lore and legends that he's plucked and cherry-picked from, goodness me, so many sources. It's insane. And he's kind of slung them all together in this gorgeous mishmash of this vast and complex world that we'll never stop exploring.
Now, there's a thing that's distinctly different from the Lord of Light and the old gods. Now, the weirwood trees are seen as like this form of afterlife, but the Lord of Life, they actually some of them can resurrect the dead, and they believe that the final savior who will return to save the world from the great other is Azor Ahai. He will come again.
Yeah.
And I think that now we don't know who that is in the show. They're kind of going down the path that both Daenerys and Jon Snow, the duality of it, that they are both Azor Ahai. That's kind of where we're going with it. Ice and fire. I'm one of the believers that Jon is actually the main Azor Ahai. When we get all the prophecy and we talk about the prophecy and all the people that actually affect the story in the prophecy, like Davos was there when Jon was getting resurrected in the show, and all of these different things, they all affect the prophecy. But I believe that if we're looking at that messianic figure that is revived, that's Jon, and this relates a lot to the story of the resurrection of Christ, which is
absolutely
one of the biggest stories ever told. I mean, it probably is the biggest story ever told in human history, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Azor Ahype, I mean, and Lightbringer. I just released a video on Lightbringer literally yesterday, actually. So this is forefront and fresh in my mind. And the conclusion I came to as far as Azor Ahype goes, because as anybody who's watched a lot of YouTube Game of Thrones content will be aware, there is a theory about this character is Azor Ahype for every single character we have ever.
You're on Greyjoy, like, get out of here, man. Okay.
Sir Pounce, characters that are dead, that died before the series began. Rhaegar Targaryen and his Lightbringer was, yeah, you know that theory. You know, and the reason why we are able to do this with Azor Ahype is because George R. R. Martin is, as you would put it, Kyle, a massive troll. And he has given us enough evidence to potentially attribute Azor Ahype to pretty much anybody. So the conclusion I came to with Azor Ahype is there isn't a predestined person that's going to be a messianic figure. If this is a thing at all, which it might not be because Melisandre gets things wrong, let's face it. If there is an Azor Ahype, or there is going to be an Azor Ahype, I believe that it will be based on an individual's behavior and actions, that anybody could be Azor Ahype, and the weapon that that person chooses will then be Lightbringer. It's not based on a prophecy or a destiny. It's based on the individual's choices and actions, which means Jaime Lannister could be Azor Ahype. Jon Snow could be Azor Ahype. Davos could be Azor Ahai.
So essentially, what you're saying is like each character is their own Azor Ahai.
Yes.
They each have their own Azor Ahai moments.
Yes, absolutely. But ultimately, history will look back on the events that are playing out in the Song of Ice and Fire now and say, oh, this person did X, Y, and Z. Therefore, he was Azor Ahai reborn.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll probably be Jon Snow.
Or Aegon Targaryen, we think. We don't know what that's going to be in the books, but in the show, for all intents and purposes, his name is Aegon. So that's
which is stupid because Rhaegar already had a son. And don't get me.
I know. I was hoping it was Jaehaerys because he ruled the line. You know, like
Jaehaerys the first was the man. You know,
he's the dude.
King. No, that anyway.
Tyrion and Jon are both a lot like Jaehaerys. But now let's talk a little bit about temples, because there's actually huge places of worship for the Red God of V'Lor, Gemma. And there's Volantis, there's Braavos.
Isn't it? Volantis is the largest red temple in the world, and that's where the high priest and the flame of the flame of truth and light and wisdom, or
the
something.
God of Flame, the Shadow, Heart of Fire, the Red God. Yeah, the name with the God with many titles.
Where their pope sits almost.
I think we're going to probably see him in season 8, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to do a video about that on this week. But there's Volantis, where the Great Red Temple is, like you just spoke about, Gemma. There's Braavos, where we see obviously the House of Black and White, but there's people that are followers of V'Lor there, and then there's Pentos as well.
Yep.
A lot of that is happening there, and Marine. We also see people. So mainly Essos, and then obviously they've come over to kind of like a crusade come over to Westeros to convert people to their religion.
Yeah, that was Thoros of Myr's job, wasn't it? He was originally sent over to convert Aerys II Targaryen, who was on the throne at the time. They thought with him being a bit of a pyromaniac that he would be a dead cert for the Lord of Light, but Thoros of Myr failed in converting Aerys II, and that's when Thoros' own personal crisis of faith began, and the downward spiral into alcoholism. And he's not just a guy who enjoys a drink for its own sake. It was deeply troubling and disturbing for him that he couldn't convert the king of blood and fire into the religion of fire. And it was a deep crisis of faith and religion for him personally. But yeah, it was definitely, the Azor Ahai comes from the annals of Asshai. This is an Eastern religion that is sweeping west.
The monotheistic religions tend to try to basically cannibalize the other ones. They want to essentially be the main religion, right? And that's kind of the scary part of it, and that's why I'm not personally religious. My family is Catholic, and we have the Judeo-Christians as well. That's very similar. It has kind of some of those things going on, but it's like you said, people lose their way, and then there's all sorts of different sects. Each individual person, like we talked about how the old God stuff was very personal. It's very personal in a different way for the people that celebrate this religion. They try to their ego is more involved, and they warp it to how they feel it can benefit them, or who is manipulating them into trying to push these sets of beliefs on people.
And that's very much what it is. They take no prisoners because they burn them. It's a mission that they have to convert people. They're saving their souls as far as they're concerned, because if you don't follow the Lord of Light, you are an agent for the Great Other. So it's a mission of salvation, of saving people's souls and their purpose in this world, because the ignorance of those that don't follow our God, and it's our job to educate them and show them the way. So it is a very personal, especially for the priests themselves. I mean, they have lesser priests, they have temple prostitutes and all sorts of things.
I mean, look at what happened to Stannis, Gemma. He's a prime example of someone that was manipulated into believing what's going on in this religion. I mean, that's fanaticism.
That's the word. That's the only word. And look what they did. They burned the weirwood tree. They burned at Storm's End. They burned the statues of the Faith of the Seven on Dragonstone. They will anything that is not theirs. They will just burn in their path. They don't want to convert. They want to destroy.
Now, this goes into the weird rituals. We talked about burning people, but we also have to talk about the elephant in the room, shadow babies. Okay, this is like just like nutty, like, you know, like,
yeah.
I mean, compare it to religions, but I don't think anybody was birthing shadow babies. And I mean, I would need to see that.
I can't think of any real world examples to connect that one to, fortunately.
Thank goodness, because if a bunch of these priests could birth shadow babies, I would be in a lot of trouble. I mean, yeah, a lot of people would be. Yeah.
In my opinion, the whole shadow baby thing isn't actually to do with this religion. Miss Melisandre is a shadow binder from Asshai. Perhaps first and foremost, she's two things. She's the Red Priestess of the Lord of Light, and she's a shadow binder from Asshai. These are separate jobs, almost. And it's shown many times over that she uses the magic of her shadow binding abilities and presents it as the will of the Lord of Light in order to convert people, which is a shady method. But we've just spoken of the fanaticism. If you had something up your sleeve that you could use to convince people in order to save their souls, of course, then you would use that. With the shadow baby, I mean, in the books, she doesn't just do this once. She does this twice at least that we're aware of. Renly isn't the first person that gets killed by one of these. And it is shown that she is literally sucking the soul out of Stannis in this procedure. Which,
his life force is his fire. She's taking his fire.
Absolutely, which makes you then wonder what's going on with this kiss of fire that's resurrecting. If you can suck from one and give to the other, is this the Lord of Light, or
did Melisandre revive Jon? Like, was that even a thing? Because we've seen Beric Dondarrion revived by Thoros, right? So we're kind of going into this territory where we don't really know, because Melisandre's interpretations of visions, which we're going to get into as well, she's like been like off. She hasn't. I mean, the Hound did a better job than her. So
absolutely, in the show he did, absolutely, yeah. She's wrong a lot. But when we get, she's got this beautiful point of view chapter in the books, and the frustration and the second guessing that she goes through in an attempt, because she knows that it's her role. She should be able to do this. The priests and priestesses train for years and years, and actually a lot of them get it wrong. She's not the only one. A lot of them get things wrong, and then they're kind of shunned by their own temple because they can't do this. So the pressure that she's under, so she thinks she sees something, she's not sure, she convinces herself it's something else because that falls in line with what she thinks is really happening. And the second guessing and the confusion and the self-doubt that she has internally about these visions kind of makes her more human, almost.
It's so crazy, because when I was reading about Zoroastrianism, the religion actually states that that the souls of the dead are going to come back and be returning to life in undead form, and that sounds a lot with like what the Night King is doing, right? Yeah. So we're not sure on if there's an actual person or being that is actually a R'hllor, or like a Night King, for example. We don't know if the Great Other is the Night King, or if it's like a Night Queen, or there's something even beyond that. But she definitely believes that she's following the orders of one of these beings or people. So
Yes.
it's really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see where all of these little pieces. I mean, because we're getting the different perspective from Melisandre, Beric. We get smaller perspectives from Beric and Thoros, but especially Melisandre, because she's giving us the biggest viewpoint into the Lord of Light and what's going on there. I'm really interested to see where it goes in the show, because I don't think we have that much time we're not going to have that much time left with her, right? I don't think, anyways.
This is something that I definitely think we will see in the show for season 8. The Old Gods, I wasn't so sure about. I would love to see it, but I'm not so sure about. But in season 7, Melisandre had some very interesting foreshadow for Varys. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the Hound, he had a vision flame thing, which is ironic considering that his favorite thing isn't fire. And then, of course, we had Thoros and Beric.
I hate fire. I hate fire. Get it away from me. My God, that was bad.
Beric also spoke about the Lord of Light a lot. You know, the whole dream team that got together for that ridiculous white hunt, they would, according to Beric, they had been brought together by the will of the Lord of Light. So that came up a lot in season 7, and the conversation between Varys and Melisandre, that's not just going to be left, is it? So in season 8, there is certainly going to be more R'hllor. She even spoke to Daenerys about the prince that was promised, which has been used interchangeably with Azor Ahype. So these prophecies are being discussed, and yeah, the Red Guard is not done with in the show by far.
Well, maybe we will go to a Volantis and we will see the fiery hand. That's something that's been talked about. I did a video on that, and I know you talked about it a little bit as well. The 1001 soldiers that protect the Great Temple in Volantis. That could be something.
I would love. I don't think we're actually. I mean, they might talk about this. You know, there may be a conversation that's had. We might even see the Golden Company. So there's going to be elements of Essos in Westeros. I don't think we'll be leaving Westeros in season 8. I think we will stay there, but that does not mean that Essos's influences, like the Lord of Light and maybe even the Golden Company, it doesn't mean we won't see those things. So there's definitely a big part to play. But I don't think we're going over to Volantis in season 8. There's not enough time to introduce. And the animations on the map would be a pain in the ass as well, didn't they? I mean, they had to do Eastwatch, so I don't think we're getting any new locations on the map, unfortunately.
I think we might see Storm's End, maybe. Like, I mean, the magical castles that Bran the Builder built. I think
that would be awesome.
And we didn't even get to talk about that. I mean, the magic of we got to go more. You got to have a whole episode on magic, right?
Oh, just one episode? we could do a year's worth of episodes on magic alone. I mean, how do you break that down? Goodness me. Yes, we have a lot. We'd need magic is far too broad. We definitely need to narrow that down to specifics for each podcast.
Absolutely. Do we want to continue to go deeper? I mean, Stannis was obviously a super popular character in the show, and we saw him die in the show. We saw that he was very, very much affected by what Melisandre indoctrinated in him, and now Jon is. I think Jon's a little bit different than Stannis. He's obviously ice and fire. He's got both Stark lineage and Targaryen lineage within him. So is he someone that's going to be affected by that, or he's going to stay more with the old gods? We're assuming, right?
It's interesting that we decided to do these two religions together in this topic, because as far as Jon Snow himself goes, he is very much being torn between these two in the show right now, isn't he? Because he's got, obviously, the old gods are his roots, but then he's been resurrected. Melisandre keeps telling him, you are the Lord's chosen, you are the prince that was promised. So, and so far he's kind of, I don't know anything about that. It would, in the typical northern fashion, I don't know anything about that. But he is essentially being torn between the old gods, which could be the ice, and as far as the Lord of Light's followers would see, anything that's not them is the great other. So Jon is being torn between the great other and the Lord of Light. Which will he choose?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if he's gonna go with either. I mean, I think we're gonna achieve some sort of balance in the end of the story. I tell this to people all the time. People are like, yeah, it's going to be a bittersweet ending. I'm like, yeah, but the word bittersweet ends with the word sweet. So.
Exactly. So many people focus on the bitter element of that word, and it's like it's dualistic. There's two parts to that word. So if you think that there's going to be a merging of ice and fire, we're going to end in water?
Well, water is actually the main element that represents life, is it not?
So Euron Greyjoy is going to end up on the Iron Throne.
No, that's a lie. Wait. I haven't done this for a long time. I'm only going to do it once.
No, don't do it. No.
Should I say it or not?
Don't say it. Don't say it. What did Bronn say? Don't say it. Don't you say it.
Fake news. I had to do it. I really scaled back on it because of obviously the person who says it is a the
great other, he whose name must not be
is he whose name must not be. Yeah, we know who the great other is right now. I mean, me and Gemma both don't live there, but we have obviously tons and tons of friends and lots of you watching that are in the United States. So confirmed, Trump is the great other.
With his big button.
Yeah, and his stammering. Shall we get to our kind of final thoughts, Gemma? This has been really fun. We're almost I think we're over an hour now, which is like I think we got a little bit more on the old gods, which is okay. I think we both
I could talk and talk and talk about these. We will have to come back to both of these. Do you know when we come back and we do the drowned god, and then we get into the faith of the seven and the storm god and the lightning lord, and then we can move on to Essos and the black goat of Cahor and that strange three-headed dwarf thing and the deep ones and all of that. I know that the old gods and R'hllor will come up in the context of those conversations. So we are not done with the old gods or the Lord of Light, but for now this could just go on for hours and everybody's got lives to get on with. So.
Well, here's the good thing, everyone, is that me and Gemma are going to be doing this once a week all the way up until season 8 and maybe even beyond because we have the books. So there's going to be lots of episodes.
There will be 1 week where we won't be able to do that because we'll be at Con of Thrones, baby, and I'll be kicking your ass at Eminem Rap Battle and Dance Off Bro. I'm going to kick your ass at that too.
But you know what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a live podcast because we're staying at the same hotel.
Are we?
So, yes. We actually we're actually staying in the same room. You know that, Gemma?
Yeah,
right? Like we're gonna be hanging out for like I'm actually gonna be going to Houston to go see Blaze Manga a couple days before, and then we're actually at Con of Thrones for not 3 days. We're there for 5, so we're gonna be there a little bit early for those of you who want to come hang out a little bit early and kind of experience Dallas. We're going to be doing some really fun. We got some really fun stuff planned, but obviously that's something we're going to talk about later. But that's going to do it for the first episode today. We are going to get into our bonus segment for patrons after we just kind of do our outro here. But Gemma, we got a lot of stuff we've been talking about behind the scenes. We don't want to give too much away because we want everyone to stay hyped. This is the Citadel of Hype podcast. We use Gemma's knowledge and my hype, and we kind of mash it together to try to make the books, the show, and real human history work within one podcast. So that's kind of going to be our formula going forward. The next one, Gemma, I like Gemma is going to pick out, and we're going to do science. That's confirmed, right?
Absolutely. I'm not entirely sure in the specifics. I'm looking very much into astrology and comets, you know, the red bleeding comet, which again brings us back to R'hllor and Azor Ahype and stuff. But I'm looking very much into that kind of stuff at the minute. So it might be something along those lines. But like I said at the very beginning, reach out to us. Kyle and myself, we're both on Twitter. We're both on Facebook. Kyle does Instagram. I don't get Instagram, but Kyle does that too. So you know, there's always the comments section in YouTube. Reach out to us. If you just title it with Q&A, even if it's not specifically a question, it'll stand out if we see the caps of Q&A, and we'll know that that's for these podcasts. And we are saving them all into a big document, and we'll come across them. But let us know what you would like, what you're interested in. But definitely the Science of Thrones is something I'd love to get my teeth into.
And obviously, everyone, me and Gemma are 50-50 on this. So we're going to explain how this is going to work this week. Obviously, this is going to be posted on my channel. You're going to have, I'm going to split this into 2 parts just for editing purposes. We're going to get the episode 1, part 1, the old gods, and then you're going to get part 2 the very next day, so you won't have to wait very, very long. But we're going to alternate channels. So 1 week it'll be on my channel, 1 week it'll be on Gemma's channel, and you're going to have to subscribe to both of our channels to get the podcast. That's just how it works with us. We're a team. And
the bonus content for Patreons as well.
Yes, so we're going to end it here real soon. We are going to be having special guests on. We're going to try to do that once a month, Gemma, maybe once every like 6 weeks. Where I've already been talking to Lucifer Means Lightbringer about an astrology episode, which would be really cool.
I love him so much. I literally love him. He's so cool.
And,
he was very good to talk about comets and astrology and stuff. He is an absolute wizard at that stuff.
And then we're going to try to get some other amazing people on. I don't want to spoil too much for you guys. That's actually what we're going to talk about in the Patreon bonus content. So what you can do is if you do want to end up getting this bonus content, you sign up through Patreon, and both me and Gemma have Patreon. And basically what it is you pledge $1 amount per month, and what happens is you get extra bonus behind the scenes content, early access to videos, and there's different tiers ranging from like $1 to $20 or $30. And basically what happens is you get to help content creators like me and Gemma out, help us achieve new milestones, and you get to be part of kind of a more focused community, and it's really fun. Patreon is amazing
community,
and you get to meet and chat with people on a deeper level, which is amazing. And you absolutely do not have to sign up for Patreon. This is something that we're going to be doing regardless. We're going to be giving you a shit. Oops, I swore. We're going to be giving you a lot. We're going to be giving.
Sorry, I should.
Oh my God, I'm just. We're gonna be giving you a lot of content, everyone. Don't worry. Like I said, there's gonna be basically 2 videos every week for you. So that's gonna be really fun, and obviously the bonus content for patrons. So with that said, in the description of this video, make sure you go check out Gemma's channel. You can go subscribe to her. You can go follow her on social media. All of that is going to be in the description of this video, as well as all my social media, Patreon and whatnot, so you guys can come check all of that out. Gemma, any final thing you want to say?
I wish you all good fortune in the wars to come, because the night is dark and full of terrors.
And
bye.
And hype is coming.
Hype's already here, isn't it? We're here. We just did
Gemma,
it.
I'm trying to do my outro. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next video.
Fuck the king. How much for your little clam?